Assalamu alaikum viewers, this is Israr Kasana. Uh, Today's program is actually dedicated for Kashmir. And as you know, we are approaching the second anniversary of August the 5th, 2019. And the RSS-powered government of India has already started setting in motion its objectives more emphatically 2 years after the revocation of Articles 370 and 35A. And you see, what they did was the bifurcation of the state of Jammu and Kashmir into union territories, Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh. And then we saw the UN experts call for urgent action to remedy alarming human rights situation in Kashmir. If India does not, international community should have actually come step up, and their efforts should have been registered. And the problem is that it is only the strong who exercise the legality. That is very unfortunate fact. Intransigence is an oft-repeated lesson of rise and fall of the empires. They don't listen. They don't change. And the revocation of Article 370 and other previous legislations were against United Nations Security Council resolutions, and especially Resolution 91 and 122, which said such acts do not make a final settlement of Kashmir. At least 10 UN resolutions since 1948 about non-applicability of Indian legislations. Even a plebiscite administrator, you remember, an American, Admiral Chester Nimitz, was appointed to conduct the plebiscite on December 31st, 1948. So why was he appointed then, if there was no dispute? So now the statehood we see is gone. Curfew, we saw the curfews, restricted movement, no progress, uh, as was promised, development, nothing. Most and severest internet lockdowns in the world. Impact on kids, it was horrible. Out of 350 state laws, half were repealed, half were modified. 170 new central laws were introduced, and they were all rejected by the people. All happened within lightning speed. Political leadership was totally missing. Press controls were there, bureaucracy full of non-Kashmiris. Then there were domicile laws. Schools, you see, schools were closed, but the fees were taken. Economic destruction amounting of almost 80,000 crore rupees. BJP actually started ruling directly. No allies were contacted. Even PDP or National Conference. Political system, social, judicial system, all broken down. Bank loans were not being paid off because nobody had the money. Even the pro-India leadership alienated. Biggest land grab through bank loans, through destruction of personal economies. So it created pessimism all over. It was othering of Kashmiris. And look at the judiciary. No stay order yet. Still, the application is pending against Article 370 revocation. So you can go on and on and on. The list of injustices to the Kashmiris is unending. So to create awareness against these injustices, there is a global movement called Red for Kashmir. I'm very lucky to have Claire Bidwell from Scotland. Her grandfather was a member of parliament. She is a primary school teacher, human rights activist, co-founder of Let Kashmir Decide, and INSPAD, peace ambassador. And then I have Mary Scully from Texas. She is also a wonderful activist, and they are, together and with other people, they are leading this movement of Red for Kashmir. Here comes Claire Bidwell first, and then Mary Scully. Welcome all.
Hi.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mary, and thank you, Claire. I'm really honored to have you both. It's a pleasure. So to start with, Mary, how did you end up being an activist advocating for Kashmir cause? You are sitting in Texas, Claire is sitting in UK. So how come, togetherness?
How did we work together, or how did I get
How
involved in
did you come
Kashmir?
to, Kashmir cause?
I never knew anything about Kashmir. There was a news blackout. I never saw it mentioned in the newspaper for decades of activism. And when the social media came on, Kashmiri activists on social media were almost pioneered the use of social media to campaign for their struggle.
Right.
So I began seeing around 2014. I began seeing protests for Gaza in Kashmir, but I still didn't know what that meant. I thought it was part of India. I mean, I thought it was, I thought it was India. So Kashmiri activists, I write a lot. I'm a political writer and activist, and Kashmiris began seeing my writing about Palestine and about Gaza, and they started badgering me. Several of them would say, you need to study our movement. You need to study what's going on with us and write about it like you do about the Palestinians. And I'm going to say for close to a year, I would put them off because I was busy. I would say, yeah, I'll get to it at some point. There's so much going on in the world. And they were relentless. And so at a certain point, I said, okay, I'll put aside some time and I'll study it. And I went to the local University of Texas branch, and I spent several months going through the library that they have, which wasn't very good, and then doing research online. And I began to understand how similar it was to Palestine. I mean, it's very different, but it's also
it has a lot of similarities also. Yes.
Yes, the heritage of British colonialism, really.
It's a colonial hangover too.
Yes. So once I saw that, once I got it, then I began to look at their struggle and to follow their writings I learned tremendous amount from these activists on social media, which is why Modi's gang has now gotten rid of most of them. But that's how I became involved, is because they would not take no for an answer.
Right. So Claire, what is your background? How come, sitting in Scotland and UK, talking about Kashmir and Red for Kashmir? Tell us about your background as well as your connection with Kashmir cause and Red for Kashmir as well. Can you unmute yourself? Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Very similar to Mary's, my background was I heard or knew nothing about this. So once I became aware of it on a simple human level of somebody that couldn't contact their parent, that just, I was looking to our TVs, our newspapers, and there was nothing. And I just couldn't believe it, because it was that feeling of injustice. You can't just do this to people. So through social media, and like Mary said, the Kashmiris were in there, they're talking. And so very quickly I learned a lot about it, lots reaching out to me. And essentially that's how the group started. It was myself and a Kashmiri from Azad that started our Let Kashmir Decide movement. And what we wanted to do was build unity amongst all the Kashmiris, regardless of their politics, and to reach out to the world. So we always, at the beginning, it was like the voices on the inside reaching those on the outside, really to amplify themselves and their issue. And in my journey, it just led to meeting lots of different people. When I first started up, Mary was one of those between us. Somebody had connected us. And I think we just exchanged a few words beginning, but I remember Mary being, just very open, very encouraging. And, I could remember actually, I think the last words, Mary, were like being like-minded, and, these love hearts all coming up the screen. So that was, 18 months ago or something. And then we've obviously built this here now, and it came on the basis of, we felt the Kashmiris were beginning to feel a bit despondent. Modi's gone through Kashmir at the rate of knots, and we just wanted to kind of lift it. And this is why we went red, because we based it on the Kashmiris turning their profiles red at the lockdown of 2019. And we didn't want this to be about Mary and I marching a movement forward. We wanted everybody to feel, there we go, nice red. We want everybody to feel part of this. And we wanted the Kashmiris to feel they could speak out and people would amplify their voices. And for others to take ownership of this campaign, whatever your organization, whatever your political leaning, we're all human beings, and humanity over everything. And so it's something we felt very simple that everybody could tap into, so that we can come out with that Kashmiri echo chamber and reach the human beings that don't know.
Okay. So Mary, let me, because the point you made, I remember like almost 10, 15 years ago, I met a congressman at the Capitol. he told me that 50% of the US Congress, people from the US Congress don't even have the passports. So they don't know what's going on around the world.
Really?
Can you imagine that? So,
Yes,
so in this
unbelievable.
kind of atmosphere, how tough and difficult it is for you sitting in the US, people where don't have any idea what's going on outside the US, to communicate with them, talk to them about Kashmir and the atrocities being perpetrated inside the Kashmiri area, how tough it is.
Well, it's kind of complicated because on the one hand, American society is very insular and very parochial, and you can see it a lot in the political movements. They want to focus only on what's going on in the United States.
Yes.
So even on the left, a strike, a small strike that takes place in Arkansas will be far more important to them than the suppression of Palestinians or Kashmiris or war in Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan. This little diddly stuff will have more importance to them. On the other hand, there is a very strong tradition coming from the Vietnam War movement, which was an international movement. There is a very strong tradition of anti-US intervention. There's a very strong current of that. And it's fumbled in the last 10 years. It's really messed up. It's bankrupted itself. It's gone corrupt. But that current still exists of opposition to U.S. intervention, and the ability to see the connection between U.S. wars overseas or Modi's intervention in Kashmir or all of those international questions with what's happening to Americans here, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement. That there's a direct connection between that. So on the one hand, we're dealing with a very insular population. We're dealing with a left that is completely bankrupt at this point. But we also have that tradition that we can build on.
Sure.
And that's what I think we're banking on. And in my opinion, Kashmir, building the Kashmiri struggle and solidarity with Kashmir, and linking it to the Palestinian struggle, to the Rohingya struggle, to the Uyghur struggle, to those of all the oppressed suffering from colonialism. If we are able to build a movement that does that, we can help to rebuild and resurrect that current of thought, which is very strong.
Right.
Well, we can involve Black Lives Matter in this movement. I think it's tied, very integrated.
It is integrated. Claire, what is your take on it? If we see, you see the movement Red for Kashmir, I see it's gaining traction. It's gaining momentum.
Yes.
And slowly but steadily it is gaining momentum. And I see a lot of people going red. So what do you think? What should people do now as we are approaching, the 5th of August? We are only 3 days ahead. So what should we do? What are your expectations from the people actually? Please unmute yourself once again.
What am I like today? Losing my head. Building on from what Mary said, I think our vision is the people power that can then, for example, for me, it's a huge injustice in my government and feeling that we owe something to those Kashmiris. It's a duty. We're duty bound to, we made that mess and we should go back and fix it. So really it's about the people power that we can gather to put pressure on our governments, and an ultimate aim, it's all set up there. The United Nations, if it functioned under its articles, charters and resolutions, would just be incredible. And it's that basis that we need. And I guess we feel if we can bring more people to this. And essentially we put power on our governments, you know, to direct that at the United Nations. And if we uprise, and I mean, we look at the apartheid movement, you know, and Nelson Mandela, and back in the 80s and 90s, and that also is really inspirational, and it showed what people can do. So I think we're hoping that everybody here that's involved in this Red campaign now is that we can only continue to build and build and build. So initially what people can do, even if this is the only thing they do, is to turn their profiles red on all their social media, you know, be it Twitter, be it Instagram, be it Facebook, be in your WhatsApp, just so that people are then aware, well, what's this red, for those that don't know. And the rest is solidarity. The Kashmiris can see, those of us that are trying to raise their voices can see. So social media profiles all red. Then what we're looking for is on Thursday, the 5th, is for every single person supporting this to upload something with a red theme, whether it's a red cup, wearing red, whether it's a sign, and to upload that again to as many social media accounts as they can, and hashtag Red for Kashmir with the capital R, the capital F, and the capital K. So it all goes to the same place. And then we, you know, that allows us to see how much involvement and engagement there was, because we can use that to take to the United Nations. We can use that to show our government in a form of like, look how many people, but it's about those we reach. So beyond that, there are demonstrations on the streets. We do have a Red for Kashmir Twitter group, Facebook page, Instagram, and Mary's sharing them on her accounts, everything that is happening, all the different events you can attend, you can join, you can private message us within those groups to see if there's anything near you. So we want people out on the streets, whether it's candle vigils, whether it's a demonstration, and then we'd like to see them uploading their examples of activity to inspire and encourage others. So that's kind of the level that we're looking at. Mary, I'm not sure if I've missed anything on what else we would like people to do.
Mary, can you take it forward? Because I'm more concerned about the next level, because after 5th of August, what next?
Yes. Well, our thinking was that we live in an age of genocide. The Palestinians are being decimated. And the last time that there were massive demonstrations was only a few months ago. Before that, it was 2014, when there were probably a couple million around the world in the streets. The Rohingya, there were tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands protesting in 2017, not since. For Kashmir, not before 2019, and not after 2019, but they are meanwhile being decimated, these peoples. And so we can no longer afford, they can no longer afford to have us sit on our butts and wait for the next spontaneous uprising of solidarity. We need to, my mind was the model of not only the anti-Vietnam War movement, which was global, but as Claire's pointed out, the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa, which was global. We need to begin to organize a movement, and I think August 5th is the first step in that, a movement that is global, collaborative, democratic, consistent, and that doesn't just do things like once a year on August 5th, but can help to initiate emergency protests at the Indian embassies on when something happens in Kashmir, that can begin to organize forums and panels and debates on political prisoners, on the use of pellet guns against Kashmiris, on the suppression of journalism and journalists, on all of these things, the forced disappearance of Kashmiri youth, the mass graves. We need an ongoing movement that can educate about that, and then that can tie in with the struggles of Palestinians, of the Rohingya, of the Uyghur, of other peoples who are being particularly oppressed by colonialism. We can begin to develop this movement. It's a very grand vision, but it's absolutely essential at this time in history. We can't let Israel mow down the Palestinians without a consistent movement to defend them, or the Kashmiri, for the Rohingya. So that's our vision.
So Claire, Mary was saying that we have to take it forward, and you see, the problem is the buck stops at the decision makers who are sitting in the parliament. For instance, UK Parliament, in Capitol Hill, in Washington DC. So they have to make decisions, and you see, we have been facing problems in approaching them. And as a matter of fact, this Kashmir issue was created by the UK, right? And I think the responsibility lies on them to fix it too, right? So what is your plan to convey these concerns to the parliamentarians and to the UK Parliament? Do you have any plan for that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where we will take this to. And I mean, I very much believe as well, you know, the politicians of the future are still to come through. You know, they are young people right now. And so for this movement, I mean, as Mary was saying, what we've done, you know, the process has become as important as the fifth.
Yes.
It's amazing the people that we have connected with and met. And the Kashmiris themselves, all the people we've met, they've got so much knowledge. The Kashmiris have carried this for 70 years.
Yeah.
And what we've got is like a panel of experts sitting there. And if we can reach more people to the world, then that is, you know, it's like they've got a bigger audience to go to. So, I mean, already there's lots of MPs that are supporting the Red for Kashmir. And they have got, you know, there's like Conservative Friends of Kashmir, Labour Friends of Kashmir. And these do have a say in their parliament, even informally in the power corridors. So it's about creating unity with our parliament as well. At the end of the day, they're human beings.
Right.
And we know, a lot of them know our political systems are quite antiquated and our world is going so much faster.
Absolutely.
So debates on Kashmir didn't happen because of COVID. And, you know, lots of things need a shift. And I think the power of the collaboration, the power of the links is something new that social media has given us and that we didn't have before. So we need to see, I think, lots of changes within, you know, the structure of our parliaments. You know, we need more people. We've got the councillors and people that are on the ground that build up. So I think we just want to look at grassroots movements in our own areas and the responsibility for each of us there to reach our own MP. And you essentially build like a tsunami, you know, that it grows. And so beyond the fifth, there'll be something else that we are working towards.
Yes.
I mean, as my own organisation, we've got an international signature campaign to release the political prisoners, and we're on foot collecting. And again, it's the awareness that you raise to people. So I was on the ground in Glasgow at the weekend, pushing the Red for Kashmir, getting signatures, and you realise how many people don't, you know, they're not aware of the issue.
Yeah.
But when they hear, they're outraged, and it's how can I help? So, you know, we don't always know where this is going to go. There's often an element of the answer could come out of somewhere we don't expect.
Yes.
You know, things could change tomorrow, and we adapt and we change with that. So all we know is that the fifth we want to make as big as possible for solidarity, to reach out to more people, to see this awareness that, you know, that somebody somewhere sitting within the government might not have heard about this and then sees all this. So it's like fishing as well, you know. Fishing, who out there is going to step forward and join our cause and help. And
no, I saw that there is a traction, and your message is going across the continents. You know, you have a very strong presence in South Africa. That was amazing.
Yes, very.
Yeah,
and that's based on them as well, because of their movement there, the work that they have done. Also, we've been able to tap into that, and it's a testament really to what the Kashmiris and what the people have been doing.
Right.
You know, beyond that, we just want to come out, like I say, of that Kashmiri echo chamber, bring more to the Kashmiris, for the Kashmiris. And you know, the worst ones.
Coming back to the point Claire is making, how to use the social media in this, because I know nowadays social media is a big weapon, right? So you can utilize it for your message, but the problem is that the way you are handling this Red for Kashmir movement, it has created a lot of stir in the Indian camp, and I know Claire has been banned from Twitter. So
yes,
how to tackle all this?
Permanently banned from Twitter.
Permanently banned. Maybe it's an honor for you, Claire.
That's the only way I can take it, isn't it? I just have to accept it. I must have been getting too noisy. I even had a letter. The Indian government want YouTube to close down my account.
Yes.
I've only got 223 followers. I mean, but there we go.
Yeah. So Mary, how to tackle that? How to tackle the social media? How to use it?
Well, I think we do what the Kashmiris did until they were suppressed. For the most part, they're
Right.
completely suppressed off of social media.
Yeah.
I think we just continue to do what we're doing. Keep educating about what their struggle is all about. Keep explaining it. Keep trying to educate and bring people's interest to it. Bring people's support. I think we just keep doing what we do
Right.
best. We're movement builders. We
Yeah.
want the Kashmiris, and we want the Kashmiris to know that they're not standing alone.
Absolutely.
I think that they thought they saw Palestinians get support and wondered why, what are we, chopped liver? But no one ever knew about Kashmir. No
Yes.
one ever knew about that struggle. And now that's changing, and we want them to know that they're not alone anymore. It must
They're
be
not alone.
very isolating and painful.
Yeah.
Like under the lockdown in 2019, they didn't know that there were hundreds of thousands of people wearing red all over the world protesting for Kashmir. They didn't know that. And we want them to, there is some internet available now in Kashmir. We want them to know that they're not alone, that you do have support, and that we're not going away after the 5th. We're going to continue to help build this movement. We're more committed than ever. There are
Right.
more people that we're working with. So we're just going to keep going. Like Claire said, if we have to adjust, if whatever happens, somebody comes out of the woodwork and we don't care.
Yes.
All we want is to build a movement where Kashmiris no longer stand alone.
Absolutely.
And they have some support.
That comes to the very end of our show. I would like, Claire, to have your final message. What to do on the 5th? As you see, we are wearing red. You're wearing red. I'm wearing red. My ring is also red. And
My
Mary.
tongue is red.
So final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, just referring back to what I said earlier about, your profile's red, uploading something red, joining a demonstration. And we do have, there's groups, we've got the Facebook page, and we want people to gravitate towards those, leave their messages, upload things, and just tell somebody next to them. If you're in the co-op shopping, just tell somebody new. Just think, every one of us can make a difference. These drops in the ocean become a massive ocean. I'd like people to think, okay, what can I do? How can I help? And believe that you can move mountains. Together we can move mountains.
Absolutely.
Can I add one thing to that?
Sure.
In 1967, I had never heard of Palestine. And it was the 67 war, and it was an unpleasant, weathery, bad day. And I was crossing the University of Minnesota campus. It was deserted. And I saw a lone Palestinian picketer going back and forth in front of the student union with a placard. And I said to him, I was concerned. I didn't like the media. It was hysterical. And I said to him, what are you demonstrating about? And the kid said, they stole our land. I said, well, what do you mean they stole your land? They stole our land. He's probably afraid. He was all by himself and in a time with Palestinians. And when I saw that, I said, I got to find out what's going on. So what Claire said is true. It might be a drop in the bucket, but you never know who you're talking to, because that was 1967 and I'm still campaigning for Palestinians and for Kashmiris and for Iraqis. And so, yes, you never know who you will affect and how you will affect.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Claire and Mary.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That reminds me of Martin Luther King's, quotation. He said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere."
Yes.
So we have to fight these injustices.
Yes.
And I thank you both, and I thank you for leading this movement, Red for Kashmir. And I wish you good luck, and I wish Godspeed to the Kashmiris as well. Thank you very much for your time,
Thank
and
you.
see you very soon, inshallah, again. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.